cloud. I don't know. I have to figure out.
I just come up and it says this meeting is being recorded. It came up on my phone, and I'll hit OK.
Okay.
So
Hi. Welcome to the first official episode of An Eye for Horror podcast with me, your host, Jake Patton. Tonight, I have as my first guest a Survivor OG from Survivor 2, the Australian Outback, all the way from Crittenden, Kentucky, Mr. Roger Bingham, aka Kentucky Joe. So I
thank you, invite. I appreciate it very much,
thank
and
you.
being the first guest, that's quite an honor.
Yes, it is. And so I've talked with Cliff Hogg, Donnie Thompson, and Kevin Slay-Huber from Big Brother, and, and
Uh-huh.
and I'm eventually going to talk with Chicken George. But
Yeah.
you're my first Survivor guest, Mr. Bingham. So thank you for taking the time to talk with me, and you're also one of my favorite Survivor castaways of all time.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate that. Very, very kind of you.
You're welcome.
Survivor's on tonight. Are you still watching?
Oh, yes, I am.
Yeah. Have you picked out a favorite to win?
Oh man, yeah, I think I have. Well, I liked Banu, but he got, he's not there
Yeah.
anymore.
Yeah. Well, we'll see who wins. You never know.
How about you?
Well, I can't think of the guy's name. He's a school teacher. He hasn't really said that much early on, but it showed him at his home. He had all these puzzles that he was working and survivor puzzles, and he's been really good at the challenges.
I believe his name is Hunter.
Yes, that's it. You got it. Yep, I remember that now. I kind of like him. I don't have any insight. I don't know if he could get kicked out tonight. I don't know.
Oh yeah, I I think he's cool. Okay, I guess let's get started.
All right.
um, what was the Survivor experience like for you?
Well, for me, they use the term adventure of a lifetime. For me, it honestly was. I was 53 years old, had never applied for anything like that in my life, but I had always been amazed and loved reading articles and seeing movies about people who had been in real survival situations. So when that show came along, I watched the first season and I told my daughter, I said, if they do a second show, I said, I'm going to send in an application. And like I said, I'd never ever done anything like that in my life. So I sent in the application. I found out later, there was almost 49,000 applicants for the second show. And for me, it honestly was the adventure of a lifetime. I was the oldest person out there. Uh, and for me, it honestly wasn't about the money all that much. Maybe that's why I didn't win. But for me, it was doing my very best, and I took some pride in being the oldest person out there. And I literally fed the rest of them. Uh, I provided 75 to 80% of the food that was eaten by the tribe. I was the one putting it on the table for them.
Oh,
So,
nice.
but I also knew that, hey, as long as I was putting food in these people's mouths, they wouldn't be in too big a hurry to vote me out. So, and that was basically true.
Right on. That makes sense. Why 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 would you want to vote out the guy who's feeding you? Yeah, it's like
You, that's right. Yeah. Yeah.
okay. Were there any modern conveniences that you missed having on the show?
The only thing that I really craved, um, besides toiletry items, I didn't really crave it. If you had to use a bathroom, you had to go find some leaves or something, grass. But I was craving ice as much as anything. And we had to boil all of our water, and that took basically one person a nonstop almost every day, just keeping water boiled up for us. And we put it in those pouches. And I said, let's take this water down here and put these pouches at the edge of the creek and let the creek cool them down as much as we can. So that was what we ended up doing. That was my idea. And but the water was still always just lukewarm. And so I was really craving ice. And then it was funny. I come back home, and the movie Castaway with Tom Hanks was coming out, and I just right after I got back home from Australia, and I said I got to go see that movie. So I went and seen it, and oddly enough, the thing he was craving was ice on Castaways, and I thought, boy, oh boy, does that ever hit home for me?
Castaway, great movie.
Yes, yeah,
Okay.
very few performers could have pulled that off, being out there by himself, but Tom Hanks pulled it off. Yeah.
Oh, he did, especially with Wilson. Wilson, damn you, and
Yeah,
all.
yeah, you actually felt sorry for that volleyball when he lost it there.
Yes, you did. Like that was his only friend.
Yes, yes, very strange.
Okay. What's Jeff Probst like in person?
Well, I always found Jeff Probst to be a very nice guy. Um, the only contact I've had with him since I've been back from Australia, which is Lord been since 2001. I guess seen him at the finale. A year or two after that, I had my first grandchild, and at that time, I had a cell phone number for him, so I called him. Well, he was somewhere. I don't remember where he was at. Somewhere filming the show, and he picked the phone up, and we talked for I don't know 7, 8 minutes. And I told him I had my first grandson and first grandchild, and so he was a nice guy.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, and so was Mark Burnett. Now, Mark Burnett, the guy that owns the shows, we would see him if we went to a challenge. Of course, he was just getting started. Of course, he's got a lot of shows now, but we would see him when we went to a challenge, or if we'd go to tribal council, we would see him standing off over to the side. He never would have any contact with us. But after the show was over, we did a lot of things. We did the People's Choice Awards. They had us all in L.A. for that because our Survivor show won it. And then we were at Carnegie Hall in New York City. Had all the Survivor people up there for a big Survivor finale deal. And so yeah, both those guys very nice.
Oh, nice. What what did you use to catch fish?
What do you? Well, in the crate once we got unloaded from that plane, there was some hooks. There was no fishing line. And there was a piece of rope, maybe I can't remember. I think it's about 20 feet long, about a 3/8 inch diameter piece of rope. Well, I took that rope and cut it down. I think I had 7 little strands. The strands were a little bit bigger than a hair on your head. I used 7 strands of it and wove that together, and that's what I made my fishing line with. And then, of course, I just used a stick for a pole. Now, there was no fishing worms. Where we were at in Australia was a very sandy soil. We never did find a fishing worm. We used grasshoppers starting out, and those were they had the kind over there that would fly maybe 75 or 100 feet. If you try to catch them, they'd take off flying. So that was a chore catching them. Used those most of the time. Now, if I would catch a small fish, I would, maybe use that small fish for bait.
Okay.
We were not allowed to kill turtles or kangaroos in Australia. They were protected by the Australian government. And I caught 7 turtles one day fishing.
Oh,
Had,
no.
had, had to throw them all back. I fished every day for 36 days in a row. It didn't matter if it was pouring down rain. I went and stood in the rain and fished. And there wasn't a day that I was in Australia that I did not fish. And would usually have some luck every day catching some fish.
Nice. So it sounds like it was pretty consistent.
Yeah,
So
it wasn't very. There was only one day out there that this was toward where everybody had their own individual fish. Usually, it would be very, maybe 3 small fish to divide up between 5, 6 of us,
okay.
and which wasn't a lot of food. If we didn't catch some fish, 3/4 of a cup of cooked rice would be all that we would eat all day long, so you wouldn't have anything else to eat. I was on the show 36 days and lost 35 pounds during the 36 days. So the show was very, very physically demanding. I didn't think TV did that part of it justice. When I was in the final 50 out in Los Angeles, trying to make it onto the show, down to the final 16, they kept telling me over and over and over is that Survivor 2 is going to be much more physically demanding than Survivor 1 ever thought about. Are you sure you want to do this? And I heard that I don't know how many times from people doing interviews and staff and doctors and what have you.
Nice. Okay, what was your favorite challenge?
Well, if I'd have won one of them, it would have been my favorite. The I come close on a couple of them there. One where we did the boomerang, I was very, very, very close on that one.
That's right.
The worst challenge that we did out there, and I heard later on that Mark Burnett called it epic. He said this next challenge is going to be epic, and it was where we had to jump off of that cliff into the Herbert River,
Yes.
50 or 60-foot high cliff. I had an in-ground swimming pool in my backyard for 12 years before I went to Australia, and had never been off the diving board until the week before I went to Australia. And I finally got to where I could jump off, the diving board's about 3 feet above the water, and then swim over to the side. Then they got over in Australia and they wanted to jump off a 60-foot high cliff and then swim the length of a football field. That was one of the scariest things I ever did in my life, to be honest with you. But I not only prepared myself physically and strength-wise, I was in exceptional shape for a guy of 53. Cardio, it could have been a little bit better. But I also started preparing myself mentally before I ever left to go to Australia, because I said, there's going to be some things over there that I'm probably not going to enjoy doing. But I said, hey, if the rest of them are going to do it, I'm going to be in there doing it too. So there was never any doubt that I was going to jump off of that cliff. But boy, that was scary for me. I'm telling you, it was on. I actually remember this, and I've never experienced anything like this in my life. The only instructions that Jeff Probst gave us, he said, don't go up there and just step off. He said, you'll hit the side of the cliff going down. He said, you got to go and run and jump out. So come my time to do it. So I ran and jumped out. And I remember thinking as soon as I jumped out, this is exactly what I thought. I thought to myself, my gosh, what are you doing? And after that, I literally, and I've heard of people doing this before, I have no recollection of falling. I have no recollection of hitting the water, being down in the water. The next thing I remember from when I first jumped off the cliff was when I popped back through the surface. And to this day, I have no memory of that part of the challenge, which is sad. You guy could get hurt, if you get in a situation like that where you don't remember what you've done.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So all days out there was not fun and games. That was not an enjoyable day for me.
Man, but it was awesome seeing you conquer your fear, and you're like very inspirational seeing you do that. It was awesome.
Yeah, thank you. The challenges were much, much longer than what they showed on TV. I know we did one challenge early on where we were all hooked. We had belts around our waist and we were hooked. There were 5, 6, 7 of us left out there. It was early on. And we had like 4 feet in between each one of us, and we were all hooked together. Well, we had to run this obstacle course, all of us hooked together. Well, they showed us going down a dry creek bed and then jumping over these barriers. Well, on TV, they showed us going over 3 of them. I think it was 3 of them, and then going on to the next part of the challenge, next part of the obstacle course. Well, in reality, there were 17 of those before we went on to the next challenge, the next part of the challenge. That was very, very, very grueling. That was and a lot longer than what they showed on TV.
Jeez.
Yeah.
So just scratch the surface of what actually
Yeah,
happened. How long? Okay.
yeah. Well, they couldn't get the whole challenge in in a probably in the show because it would have been too much time took up for that.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. And after you run through all this obstacle course, then you had a half a mile run up this beach up to the finish line. After you'd run all this, it was grueling. It was grueling.
Sounds like it.
Yeah.
Um, do you? This one question, I guess you already answered. So I was going to ask you why you went to the bathroom, but
Yeah. Everybody just looked for a log. It was kind of funny. We built our camp was on next to the river there, and we seen crocodiles there early on. There was crocs in the water, and after we were there like a week, they had moved out, and we always watched out for. And we actually talked about trying to kill one of them one day, but we never did see one that was under 8 or 10 feet long, and we certainly wasn't going to tackle him out in the water. But anyway, we built our little bathroom facilities. You have no privacy. If you're a very private person, forget it if you're going on Survivor, especially the earlier shows. Um, we went straight out the ridge and dug a little hole and put some rocks up and put some sticks across it to set on. And if anybody was out there, you could look straight out there and see them. And then there was a couple of times where we came back from a challenge tribal council absolutely drenched, wet. And your main priority every day was to make sure you had one good try outfit to put on. We'd hang it up in the inside of the tarp
okay.
where rain couldn't get to it, and that became a number one priority. And like I said, there's a couple of times where you just went in there and everybody just changed clothes, and or else you went to bed with wet clothes on,
Oh no.
and you'd only do that one time. Second time you wouldn't. Second night you'd be changing clothes like everybody else was. Kobe had a belt buckle on and had a little thermometer on it. And this is one thing I always look for on. Of course, they're doing all the shows now out in the South Pacific. I always look to see where people's sleeping because that's a direct correlation of exactly how cold it was. Getting back to Kobe Donaldson, he had a belt buckle on. I'm out there fishing one day, and he comes out there. This was later on after we'd merged, and he looked at his belt buckle, and it was 102 degrees. Now we was right in the sun. That same night, he looked at it, and it was 34 degrees at night, and sleeping on the ground. So we were all huddled together in that shelter right up next to each other because it was cold.
Man. So so,
Like
oh,
the show was very physically demanding. All of the people that I was on the show with felt like that what they showed on TV. They showed some of it, but it wasn't. It was a lot more grueling than what they showed on TV. Elizabeth, the little girl that was my buddy on the show,
oh yeah.
this was towards the end. I don't know if you remember the show. She could take a hold of her hair and pull clumps of hair out, and that's from a vitamin and mineral deficiency, not eating enough. Um, so that's starting to get serious when you get in that shape.
Oh yeah. Man. Um, do you have any funny stories from your time on the show?
Any funny stories?
Yeah.
Well, let's see. I don't know if I've ever been. I thought I'd been asked every question 5,000 times. Any funny stories? Let me think on that for a minute.
Okay.
Uh, I don't know if it's all that funny or not, but when I was trying out for Survivor, uh, the night I found out I was going to be on the show, Mark Burnett and Jeff Probst, we were in a large hotel out in Santa Monica, came in my room, and Mark Burnett said to him, and this was his exact words to me. He said, Roger, he said, I got some good news for you and I got some bad news for you. He said, the good news is you've been selected to go to Australia to be on Survivor 2. And the bad news is you're going to skydive out of an airplane to get on the Australian continent and you're leaving for skydiving school in the morning. Now I'm an old country boy. Never, I was in my 20s before I ever saw the ocean. Never rode a roller coaster in my life. Don't plan on ever riding a roller coaster in my life. So jumping out of an airplane wasn't on my to-do list, needless to say. But anyway, I went to skydiving school, as did the other 15 people. And I had no idea who the other 15 people that was going to be on the show with me. We were all sent to different skydiving schools all over the United States. And as luck would have it, the day that I'm going to make my first jump after I'd gone through the training, I got the parachute on. I'm walking out to the plane. Right at the edge of the plane, the guy from the office comes running out and tells me I got a phone call. So I go back and take the phone call, and it was, I don't remember if it was CBS or the Survivor people. And they said, don't jump. They said, we're having trouble getting life insurance on all of you people. So they kept me around there 3 more days. And then, as you know, we didn't skydive. And thank God I didn't have to make a jump out of an airplane. And it was more than just jumping out and pulling a chute. We was going to skydive. We was going to jump out at 12,000 with nobody hooked on to us, by ourselves. 12,500 feet, and then free fall down to 5,000 feet before you pull the cord. So, you're dropping over a mile through the sky there before you ever pull that cord. So thank God my prayers were answered that day.
Good Lord. Yeah. I don't think I could do that personally either. So,
yeah.
So you lucked out.
Yes, lucked out. That's not a funny story, but it's funny now that I look back on it. Thank God.
I heard about the chicken feed. How was that?
Chicken feed. That's chicken feed's got molasses in it. I was the one that, of course, I'm a farm boy. I knew how to, that pig we caught out there. I knew how to process that hog. We killed 12 hogs here. Last time we did it's been about 10 years ago. We killed 12 hogs one day. I know how to do all that. And chickens, I was one. Not a one of them knew how to get the feathers off of them chickens. If I'd have just kept my mouth shut, it could have been a very funny episode. But I knew how to do all that. And the chicken feed was there, and I'm over there one day eating it. And they said, "What are you doing?" I said, "Well, I'm eating chicken feed. Chicken feed. It's got molasses in it, and there's a little corn and grain." And I said, "Just don't eat too much of it because it might give you the trots." But anyway, then they started using my John Deere hat, which has got it's not a solid cap, but one of those with a mesh on it. And they would sift through it, and they got to popping the corn up and making popcorn. It would pop up like popcorn out there. So everybody was using that. I ate some of that, but I ate most of mine just right out of the bag, the chicken feed. So,
oh, cool.
We ate raw fish. I don't know if they showed that on. I can't remember. I don't think they did. We ate raw fish early on. There was 2 people that wouldn't eat it. I'd caught some fish and we didn't have fire, and just cleaned them and ate them. That's the freshest fish I've ever had. But I can't remember who the 2 was. It said they said they wasn't that hungry yet. I said, "Well, give it a few days. You will be."
Very nice. I have a few more questions if you don't mind, but if
That's
not,
fine.
okay.
Go ahead.
Thank you. What's your favorite food?
My favorite food is probably a ribeye steak.
Oh man!
After I was voted out, the lady. It was a 2.5 hour drive in a 4-wheel drive vehicle to get out of the outback back to where we stayed. And it's my understanding everybody that when they get voted out, she'd say, "What do you want to eat the next day?" Because it was way up in the morning. She said, "What do you want to eat tomorrow?" And I told her, I said, "I'd like to have a steak and a baked potato." And of course, I had plans on eating about a 30-ounce steak while you couldn't eat 6 ounces. Your stomach was drawled up so bad.
Oh, geez.
First night I got voted out, went in and the men stayed at what used to be a bunkhouse for cowboys. Wasn't air conditioned, wasn't heated, didn't have any windows in it. It had screens in the windows. There was a bathroom in there. And I go in there and I'm starting to take a shower, and I look at myself in the mirror, and I couldn't believe what I looked like. Uh, when I was trying out for the show, everybody had to do push-ups, and I'd been exercising. I did 50 push-ups at one time, and that seemed to impress them quite a bit. Well, and then when I got on the show and after I was voted out, I knew I looked so much different. And so I said, well, I'm going to see how many push-ups I can do. Well, 23 was the most I could do. Went from 50 down to 23 because it was literally eating your muscle up. Fat was gone, and then it'll eat you fat, and then it'll just start eating your muscle up when you're not, getting enough food.
Oh, yeah.
Now, I will say this. If it had just been myself, either out there by myself or myself and Mike Scoopin, the guy that fell in the fire and got his hands burnt.
Oh, yeah.
Me and him could have got along very well out there because, to be honest with you, the rest of them did no dingly squat about surviving. Now, they did know how to survive other people, but as far as surviving Mother Nature, no, there wasn't any of them knew hardly anything at all.
Well, it could have been a very interesting show with just you and Scoopin.
Yeah.
Survivor 2 was a great season, but
Yeah. So Survivor 2, of course, it was at the height of its popularity, and it had the highest ratings of any of the Survivor shows ever. Even though they're on season 46 now, I think, something like it. Survivor 2 had the highest ratings. It knocked Friends. Friends had been the top rated show for several years, and we knocked them out of the top ratings that year.
Nice. Do you drink alcohol? And if you do, what's your favorite
No,
beverage?
no, I don't drink, don't smoke, never have.
Cool.
When I was in school, I always wanted to be able to run a little faster and jump a little higher than the other guy, and for that reason, I just never did take any. I don't see anything wrong with it. Person wants to do it, that's up to them. For me, it just wasn't the right thing to do.
Hey, cool. That's cool.
Yeah. I used to grow tobacco all the time and sell it. That's how I put myself through school, raising a tobacco crop. Tobacco is not very good for you.
No,
as
no.
found out.
I quit smoking 2 years ago, so I feel better.
Oh, wow. Good. Great.
Thank you.
Good for you.
Do you have any hobbies?
Yes, I got a farm. I piddle around on it. Had cattle up until about 3 years ago, and built a wedding venue place on my farm. And so I did away with the cattle and tore down a lot of the fence. But I do a lot of woodworking. Made my daughter a king size bed here about 3 months ago, and making a bunch of wooden bowls. And in another life, years ago, I used to teach woodworking, so I've made cedar chest, dining room tables, china cabinets, gun cabinets, you name it. I've pretty well made it or helped my kids make it when I taught school.
Nice. So you like a MacGyver type?
Well, I am pretty good on woodworking. Not bragging, but that's as far as mechanical work goes. No, I'm not. As far as tearing a tractor apart and overhauling the engine, no, that's not me. But it comes to, I said 50 years ago, I said when I retire, I'm going to have a little woodworking shop. So that's what I got. I go out there usually anywhere from 2 to 5 hours every day except weekends. I don't go Saturday or Sunday.
Okay. Very nice. Okay.
I put out 100 walnut trees this year on my farm, and last year I put out 100, and this next year I'm going to put out 100 more. They won't do me any good. It takes about 80 years for a walnut tree to mature. If my family still got to farm, 80 years from now, they'll be worth a lot of money. If they don't, try to leave the world a little bit better place than you found it. And so that's my main reason for doing it, really.
Right on. What do you like on your pizza?
Pizza is not my finest food, to tell you the truth.
Oh crap.
I
Okay.
had so much tomato paste in my life, especially when I was taught school there for 12 or 15 years when I was teaching school. Seemed like they'd have something with tomato paste in it about 4 days out of 5. So if I do go out and order a pizza, I'll tell them to just that red pizza sauce, cut it down to about 1/10 of what they normally put on a pizza. But as far as what I like on it, pepperoni.
Ooh,
Yeah,
good.
with a lot of cheese.
Oh, gotta have cheese. How do you
Oh
feel?
yeah,
How do you feel about mushrooms? No.
and not really.
All right, cool.
I'm pretty down to earth. Meat, bread, and potatoes is about it for me. I can get along fine if I got those three things.
Hey, right on. Good choice. This one, I was going to ask you, have you ever been to Ohio, which you have, but,
Oh yeah, I'm just 28 miles from Ohio.
oh, cool.
Yeah, just right off Interstate 75.
Oh, okay. Um,
My farm's about a little over a half a mile right off the interstate there at Crittenden.
oh, nice. So, what are your five favorite movies, or five of your favorite movies? Don't have to be.
I can name three of them real fast. Probably my favorite one of all time is probably Forrest Gump. Loved that movie. Loved it. There again, Tom Hanks. I think he won an Oscar for that, and he should have. Hoosiers. I bet if that movie was coming on tonight and I flipped around and it was showing, I'd sit right there and watch it again. I know I've seen it 15 times.
Gene Hackman.
Uh, yeah, Gene Hackman. Yeah, and that school is just the interior of that gym and that school is just exactly the way the little school was that I went when I was in grade school. And now my high school was a little bit different, but that was the grade school. And Quigley Down Under. I like that with Tom Selleck. And that's it. I don't really know about the other two. I'd have to think on the other two, but those first three are easy to come by.
Right on.
Yeah.
I had made about 15 Dr. Peppers. I had
Oh,
to pay. That's my best Forrest Gump impression. I can do it better, but
oh, yeah, yeah,
I love you, Jenny.
yeah. Life is like a box of chocolates.
Lieutenant Dan ice cream.
Oh, yeah. That show made that Lieutenant Dan. He said that people still call him on the street. If he meets people, they'll call him Lieutenant Dan.
So, do people still call you Kentucky Joe?
Every once in a while, it's been 20 years. It was crazy when the show was over. If you had to pick a time to be on a show, uh, where the show was so popular then. Uh, I mean, if I went out to eat, I'd have 20 people come up to the table. I live on a farm out here in the middle of nowhere. And to have people come up and which was fine. I always talked to everybody. At nighttime, it would take me an hour and a half every night to answer mail. And I answered every letter that I got from people. Most of them was from kids.
Oh, wow.
You know what? If they took the time to write to me, I'm going to answer them back. So I did every letter. And so it was a interesting time. Mark Burnett came up to me when we were at the finale, and of course everybody got paid for being on the show. He come around, gave me my check, and he said, "Are you sure you're ready for all this after Survivor?" And I said, "What do you mean?" He said, "Well, everybody knowing you and everything." And I said, "I'm thinking, yeah, it'd be over in a month or two." Well, I was flying somewhere every weekend for a year and a half. It was 1,000 times more than I ever dreamed, and I mean getting paid to do it.
Oh,
Go
wow.
go and sit for 4 hours and do nothing but sign autographs and have a line that would never end all the 4 hours you were there. Was in Canada for Kentucky Fried Chicken. I was up there for a radio station a different time doing a thing. I was at a church up there in Canada once. I was in Florida for Procter and Gamble. I was in the Anaheim Center out in California speaking engagement. It was crazy. It was crazy. I had an agent that was booking all that stuff for me, and so, but it was also a fun time. I got to meet a lot of people all over the United States, and it was just a very enjoyable time. I thoroughly loved it. Plus, financially, it was very rewarding.
Right on. Man, well, if you ever come back to BG, I don't know. Yeah.
Bowling Green, yeah, that's my first trip up there, and I'm 76 now, so odds of me making maybe in another 75 years I'll make it back up there. Yeah, we brought a truck and a gooseneck up there and loaded that John Deere up and brought her home. I've still got it out in my barn.
Oh, cool. Okay, if you're ever in BG again, the steak dinner is on me.
Oh, you're very kind. If I'm up there, I'll look you up, but you don't have to do that. No, that's very kind. If you see you're down Crittenden Way, there's a McDonald's and a Wendy's and a couple other places out here to eat. We can swing in there and have a sandwich or a cup of coffee or something.
Sounds good to me.
Yeah, yeah.
But,
But anyway, thanks for the opportunity to be on your show. Appreciate it.
absolutely. Thank you for taking the time to talk with me. I appreciate it.
That's quite all right. Thank you. I think it's getting about time for the Survivor show to come on.
Oh yeah.
Hey, listen, you have a good evening. I appreciate it.
You too, Mr. Bingham.
Thank you, sir. Good evening.
Bye.
Bye.